Kingdom.
Good morning and welcome to this special program, special Frank on Capital. We're coming on in a bit, earlier, today on a very important, subject. But before we do that, do I have my favorite song? You don't have my favorite song, and I guess I told you to give me. I showed the sharing. Anyway, welcome to Frank on, on Capital. The continued failure rate of the Zambia Institute of Advanced Legal Education, ZIALI, is a source of concern. State Council John Sangwa is my guest on Frank on Capital this morning. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, thank you.
How are you enjoying the new environment, as far as governance issues are concerned?
Well, I think that may be a topic of another day. we need to dedicate a complete segment just to talk about governance in the current environment. But allow me to say this one thing. I think I was on your program when I said I think you should call me back after 3 months. I think. I think people misunderstood what the 3 months was all about.
Right.
It wasn't about expecting government to succeed and accomplish all their programs in 3 months. I think it was, when I said that, it was about after 3 months, you get the flavor.
Right.
Of which way or which direction the new government is taking the country. And that should be quite evident after 3 months. Because it is very difficult to assess that in 2 weeks or whatever. But I think 3 months is a reasonable period of time to be able to determine whether we should sit comfortably thinking that we're in good hands or we should get worried. Okay, that's what I meant by the 3 months. If you ask me what's my prognosis in 3 months,
I was actually going to ask you that.
Well, I am worried.
You are worried?
Yes, I am worried.
Okay.
Yeah, I am worried because the initial excitement that I expressed and the hope that I expressed in the new government, I think, is being replaced with a sense of fear. That I expected a lot more. A lot more. But what I've seen so far is something that which doesn't give me something that does not give me the comfort. And the other biggest problem which is emerging is this intolerance to criticism. When we criticize government, we do so out of love and out of concern. Let me speak for myself. You see, I have a vested interest in seeing HH and this government succeed. I have a vested interest.
Right.
Because I made a choice to say I'm not voting Edgar Lungu. I'm voting a church. It's a question of judgment. So I made a judgment call where I believe that between the two men, who is better placed to drive the country in the right direction. And I opted, not that I'm a UPND member. No.
Like many people.
That's right. People always confuse these things. They think that once you say something good about a particular political party, it means you're a member of that political party. No. It is a matter of policies. When they do good, you support them. When they do bad things, you criticize. So I have a vested interest in his success. Because the last thing you want is people to say, we made a mistake in 2021. Now that would be a serious indictment. And that would also a reflection of, that would also be a personal failure on my side. It means that my sense of judgment was wrong. You see, because it means that I have failed. Failure on the PF or on the UPND government and HH. Failure on their part is also my failure because I gave them my vote.
Yeah.
Okay. So the 2.8 million Zambians that voted for them, they will have failed. So when we criticize out of concern. We criticize because we want government to do better. So I think there is a misunderstanding. People think when you criticize a government, then you are anti-government. No, you're not anti-government.
Yeah.
You just want them to do
Yeah.
better. So if you ask me, no, I am actually worried.
Yeah.
I am very, very worried because I rated the president very, very high.
Yeah.
But
Like many other people.
yes, but there is a sense of disappointment. Let's take the issue of the current topic of removal of subsidies and so forth. Right now, there's even a bigger problem. Now we have a situation where the president is now being called a liar. Nah, that's not a good thing.
No, that's a very strong word.
Yeah. No, I mean, whether strong or not, but the point is, such words should never be used to describe a person. There may be a factual basis for somebody to use those words, but those words should not happen, should not be used. And when they are used, we should interrogate why they've been used. Why has the president been called a liar? Okay? Now, what is required? It's a very simple problem. It's a very simple problem when you're a leader. And the only requirement for proper leadership is basically honesty. Once you're an honest person, I don't think that you have so many challenges in governing. Now, we know, everybody knows that people should know that campaigning and governing are two different things altogether. Now, yes, there are statements that may have been made whilst campaigning. Now, when you are now, first of all, it's even worse for somebody who has never been in government, right? So doesn't understand the workings of government. But when you are now in government, now, first of all, one friend of mine, one classmate of mine, who is now a judge of the Court of Appeal, once told me, he says he was somewhat surprised in my naivety about the workings of government. And they reminded me that, you see, government is not what we see, that there is another layer of government that we don't get to see, which is fine, which if you don't subscribe to anyway. But what it meant is that we may see a lot of things being done, but we don't know what is going on underneath. We simply see decisions being implemented, but we don't know what went into that. That is part of the inner workings of government. Especially in an environment like Zambia, where there is no transparency in terms of public information. We have no access to public information. So when you are in the opposition, you make your pronouncements on limited information. Now, when you're finally in government, you now have a full picture. There is nothing wrong in you saying, you know what, we promised you free education. We've looked at the numbers.
Absolutely.
It is not possible in the current situation
To be societal.
for us to give you free education. But this is what we are going to do. For the next 2 years, we continue as usual. But we're looking at the economy, we'll have fixed a number of things here and there, and we should be in good shape in year 3 to introduce free education. But not for everybody. Based on the resources. It's about owning the message. Now, you and I are old enough to remember that between 1991 and 2001, President Hichilema introduced very brutal economic reforms, which created massive poverty. I think you'd recall that most of your peers who were parastatal chiefs, most of them are dead today.
No, it's true. Yeah.
They're dead today.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, somebody was a parastatal chief, being driven, who had maybe 5 cars, was changing, who had a car for every day of the week.
Yeah.
Now was out of employment. What happens? Depression sets in. Then, but the point is, nobody went to the streets. Throughout the 10 years of President Hichilema, nobody rioted on account of economic hardships.
Yeah.
Why? Because Hichilema owned the message. Hichilema was honest.
I remember, at the last rally before the elections at Pop Square.
Yes.
And it was raining. We're there. Tuned into every single word. He said something that I've never forgotten. It's going to be very, very tough.
Yes.
Are you ready to bite the bullet?
Yeah.
Said,
the
yes,
crowd went, yes.
Yeah.
The president
I hear you.
The message.
I hear you.
We are not difficult people as Zambians.
Yeah.
From my experience, the last thing you want to do is to lie to Zambians.
Yeah.
Tell us the truth.
Yeah.
Hichilema never had a riot. He used, if you remember, we used to say sap, sap, sap.
I eat sap in the morning.
That's correct.
Lunch.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So Hichilema owned that.
Yeah.
They say, countrymen, we have no choice,
Yeah.
but we have to implement this structural adjustment program. After 10 years, later on we went to EPIC.
Yeah.
Everybody, we now knew EPIC, EPIC,
Yeah.
EPIC, EPIC.
Yeah.
Finally, EPIC materialized.
Yeah.
The entire 7 billion debt that we had
Gone.
was written off.
Yeah.
We survived. Nobody rioted against those economic hardships, against those policies, because presidents were honest. Now, even the issue of fuel subsidy and electricity is for the president to come forward and tell the nation, be truthful. Not what we are seeing whereby people are walking back and say, but we never promised this, we never promised this. I mean, come on. Just be truthful. Okay, own it. Now, the buck stops with the president.
Yeah.
Because we elected HH as president. We never elected Musoko Tuane as Minister of Finance. We don't elect our ministers.
Yeah.
We elect our president. But the ministers are chosen by the president. So there is people, they work for him. And the president works for us. So he owes us an explanation. The president has to own the message.
Right.
These are rookie mistakes that are being made.
Yeah.
Now, the other point, just to conclude on this point, why I'm nervous. Failure by HH is a matter of choice. HH has no reason to fail to govern this country.
Yeah.
And the biggest mistake we can make, which is what they are doing, you see, they are comparing themselves with the Lungu, the way Lungu was running the country. That's crazy. There is a reason we removed Lungu. So you can't compare yourself to say, we're doing better than this, doing better than Lungu, better than PF. No, that's not the way you rate a government. We look at who you are, what you are capable of doing. The commitments you made will judge you based on the commitments you made. The fundamental point which Zambians must know is the fact, like I've said, failure by HH is a matter of choice.
Yeah.
The reason is this. HH took over the presidency at a very interesting historical time in the history of this country. HH lived under nearly 30 years of Kaunda rule, where there were certain economic policies, where government managed everything. We had that system for 30 years, nearly 30 years. We saw the advantages and disadvantages of that system. Then we have another 30 years, from 1991 to 2021, which is another 30-year period, where we counter-represented one extreme. Then the 30 years is shared between MMD and PF, which was another extreme. The question is, where does HH fit in? Okay? Where does he fit in? We need to know. So really, he has a lot we can draw from experiences that we have had. The EPIC, whatever IMF dealings, we have been there before.
Absolutely.
Now, he has to make sure that he avoids the mistakes we've made in the past. Okay? I mean, to repeat the mistakes we have made in the past, it means we have learned nothing. Okay? So he has that. And he has another extreme of PF and MMD, where government literally abandoned its people to say, you fend for yourself, you are subject to market forces. We have seen the ravages of that system. 30 years, we are sitting on a debt of $14 billion in debt. Per capita debt, on a per capita basis, you're talking about $700 of debt per citizen. 1964 to 1991, again we are sitting on a debt of $7 billion. Debt per capita, another 700. So we have those two models. One was state-controlled, one was free market. Both have literally ended up in disaster. Where does HH fit in? So that's why I'm saying failure is a choice, because he has a lot to learn from.
Absolutely. How does he rescue himself?
Well, the problem is, leadership requires humility. Now, one of the problems you have with our leaders, all of a sudden the language has changed. From begging votes, they came asking for votes with a sense of humility. Now, all of a sudden, they are all wise and all knowing, and they know it all. No, you don't know it.
I know some of my colleagues who have now stopped picking my calls.
That's what happens.
I said so soon. Really?
You get it wrong when you detach yourself from the people. You get it wrong. But you must understand that the power you have is not yours, it's for the people. And that is why there is always need for constant engagement. It's still possible I think he can get the train back on the road, but the indicators are not good. They don't give me the confidence. The last thing I want to see, I don't want to see that in my lifetime, whereby people start missing President Lungu. That will be a disaster. For those of us that were against Lungu and PF, that will be a disaster for us, because it means that we made bad judgment, but I've always prided myself to be a good judge of character. The last thing I want is to be proven wrong. So really what we are saying, we're not saying that, we have to judge him in 3 months, but we have to, let me give you this example. It's like a friend of yours comes, whom he's never driven a car before, and he comes to say, hey, Ambassador, I now have my driver's license, can we drive to Kabwe? What are you going to do? Now you have never seen him drive before. You say, okay, here the key to my car. Then what are you going to do? You don't just get in the passenger seat and relax. No. You have to watch check the guy. How well is he handling the car? Because fortunately these days you have all automatic cars. In those days when you were at those gears, you want to see how he's balancing the gas and the clutch and so forth, how he's engaging the gears. And then at the end of the day, you feel a sense of comfort to say, this guy knows how to drive. And what do? You can now afford to sleep, to say, I'm going to reach Kabwe safely. But if you see struggles, now it doesn't take long. You notice that in 2-3 minutes that the guy has absolutely no idea about driving. But if he struggles, then you'll say, no, you won't just allow him to drive on his own to Kabwe. You'll be there in the passenger seat and watch him. You'll be alert. I think it will be the longest journey to Kabwe you've ever had. It's the same thing with governance. So we are at a stage, yes, we accept a church has never been in government before and everything else. And so the first 3 months is to tell us whether we should relax or get more involved. But the indicators, my judgment would be no. Citizens, get more involved. Hold these leaders accountable. Let's analyze, let's get involved in the governance. The problem in this country is that we vote and we go to sleep.
Absolutely.
We wake up only to realize that the country is being run by cadres. Then you ask yourself, how did this happen? It's too late. But the indicators are that we need to be alert. We need to hold government accountable because these people are doing things, are acting in our name, on our behalf. We are the bosses. You can't be the boss. You employ somebody and then you go to sleep. You can't. That's being irresponsible. So as a citizen, we need to get involved in the governance. And it's not about the kind of postings you are seeing on social media, which are largely disrespectful and abusive. And we are talking about critical discussions on national issues. Engage the leaders in a respectful manner. You and I can debate in a respectful manner because that's the only way we can build this country. We can't build this country through insults and threats. I constantly reminded President Lungu on this issue to say, listen, countries are developed, countries are built over ideas, not through threats, and some of these things, they because when you look at leadership, you ask me, how does he recover from it? It's very simple. Okay, engage with the people, tell the people the truth, explain to the people, why certain things cannot be done. We can understand. Let them be truthful. Let them take out data, to say, this is what we found. Based on this, here's the information. We are reasonable people. We can't ask them to give us certain services when we know there are no resources.
Absolutely. We want to see a situation where we tell ourselves, look, this was badly done. It will never be done again. Okay?
Yes.
What is worrying me, as a rider to your worries, is when I talk to some people and say, look, things have to be better. Some people say, you know what? Surely they cannot be worse than PF. Why should we be lowering our bar to yesteryear?
Yeah. PF cannot be the standard.
No.
PF cannot be the standard. No. That's the reason we voted them out. Because, you see, if the bar was so good, if PF was too good, we would have elected them in 2021.
Absolutely.
The fact that we kicked them out, it's like, the fact that we kicked them out meant that they had failed us. So, it means we are saying we deserve better. So you can't give us the same junk that we rejected and use that as a basis of as a standard for which you have to base your performance. That in itself is a problem.
African leaders, really amaze me. The president of Malawi, the current Malawian president, came in with amazing fanfare. I was watching Mutharika the other day at renewal of cards. It's amazing. They want to go back to Mutharika. Who they kicked out.
That's right. But I don't want that to happen.
No.
I'm praying that doesn't happen. To see Lungu come back.
No. Then I got to start dusting my passport.
No, that shouldn't happen. But it is up to a church and UPND to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I know people would say, well, it's too early, you're judging them too harshly, but we're judging them based on the indicators.
Absolutely.
Let me give you another example, for instance. I mean, the sad part for me was when I saw all the permanent secretaries removed. Now, that was a crazy decision. Completely insane. You don't run government like that. When you do that, you are politicizing the civil service, which you shouldn't do. Now, again, the problem is that we have very little respect for history. I'm reminded in 1964, we changed government. The colonial government departed. We had the first black government, headed by Kenneth Kaunda as president, and he had a cabinet. If you go back in the archives, you see the relevant documents. One of the things you will see is that whereas all the ministers were black Zambians, all the permanent secretaries in the ministries were whites. Now, these were Kaunda and his cabinet with limited education. But they understood the value of continuity in government. Okay? They didn't say, oh, we are now the new government, so everybody, all the white people out, we are going to replace them with black Zambians. No.
The secretary to Kaunda for many years, we found Mrs. Tripp was with Kaunda for maybe another 5 years. She knew everything in that state. But there was a black lady, understanding.
That's right.
Yeah.
So those decisions where you remove everybody, you can't. Because then it means that you don't have a professional civil service. It means that you don't have career civil servants. Okay, basically what it means that when you reach PS, and this is what causes permanent secretaries to start campaigning for the government in power. Because they know once the government that appointed them loses, they are also out. Which should not be. These are supposed to be professionals to run ministries. Okay, they should be able to serve whichever government that wins, that comes into power. So what is now, we have created a culture now, if let's say whatever UPND leaves office, then all the civil servants, all the PSs will be removed. And in the process, there has to be, you are undermining continuity. There has to be, government doesn't stop running because there is a new government or whatever. Government continues to run. Those are some of the mistakes that have been
Do you
made.
tend to feel that all of them are not singing from the same hymn?
Yes. Okay, there's another problem here. Which is this. When you say new dawn, it's a slogan, right? What does it mean? Nobody has articulated what it means. New dawn, new dawn. My understanding of new dawn, it means you are basically saying we have to do things differently. Okay.
It's a new day.
It's a new day. It's a new chapter. So it means you are saying, and in any case, in this case, it is inevitable because we threw out one government which was doing things in a certain way we didn't like. So when you come in, we expect you not to repeat any of those things that caused the previous government to be kicked out. We expect you to do things differently. I don't see that. You can sing all you want. I mean, it's the same thing. It's not different from Lungu and these people telling us there is development, there is development, there is development, trying to convince us that there is development. Do you know what we did as Zambians? We kept quiet. We stopped talking. We stopped debating. We just started looking at our voters' card and counting the days. Yes, we went quiet. So it is important for when you say you're a new dawn, it means, for instance, I would have expected a serious legislative agenda being initiated by the president, whereby laws should be passed, revamping the systems, certain institutions being beefed up, processes being introduced,
civil service reforms,
things being reformed. I mean, I gave you an example. I was embroiled in one controversy where I was saying there has to be a transparent way of appointing judges,
Absolutely.
for example.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
There isn't, I mean, it was my way of also testing this government, because what they did, they were following what PF was doing. And that is still the system. And what I was advocating for was there has to be a different way of doing things.
I'm told that there's a call. We'll pick it up from. I love this, and I think this is a different program. We basically discuss.
Yes,
We've even forgotten about our main subject. Yeah, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Ambassador Mutoye.
Morning. Your name, please.
I'm Mr. Banda. I'm calling you from Chizarombe.
Yes, Mr. Banda. What is your submission?
Good morning, Tanso Sangwa.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm following that program. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, I tend to disagree with the council
Go ahead.
where he's saying all permanent secretaries that served under PF were removed from their positions. It's not everybody who was removed. There are still some permanent secretaries who are still working with the current government. I think you can check your facts.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you done, sir?
Yes, I'm done. I just wanted to make that clarification so that we move together.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. But the point still remains, okay? It is important. You cannot undergo some kind of wholesale. Okay, I haven't looked at the numbers, but
There are quite many.
there are quite many.
Yeah.
The bulk, I think if there are some that have remained, they
Yeah.
are very few.
Yeah.
Those that have left are more.
Yeah.
Okay, but my point is that these are Zambians, and removal should be based on a case-by-case basis. Did you perform? If you performed, you stay. You didn't perform, you are thrown out.
Yeah.
Simple. Okay, but it should not be a political decision based on perceived because there is a new government and everything else has to change. So those are the factors that which I was talking about. And you asked me a question before before that call came in. I think it was about whether they are singing from the same.
Yeah.
Now, there is one point that needs to be understood, which is the fact that the messaging has to be done by the president. All these ministers serve at the pleasure of the president.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, my biggest worry about these ministers, for some reason people think working is talking. Okay? Each one, and all of them, there's no sign, I don't get a sense of dialogue. It's more like threats. We'll do this, we'll do this,
Yeah.
we'll do this. No. When you are campaigning, you make promises. When you're in government, you don't make promises.
Right.
You act.
Yeah.
I would prefer a minister keeps quiet and comes and tells us to say, oh, by the way, we have done this. We are doing this. Okay? Show us the results. The time for promises has gone. Now you have the reins of power. You have the instruments of power. So there is a problem, for instance. Let me also divert on this particular issue. Let's take Zambian Airways.
Yeah.
I can't think somebody in his sane mind would actually sanction Zambian Airways.
No. I think it's crazy. In
Unless-
this economic environment?
That's right. Unless you're a saboteur,
Yeah.
you're an enemy, a person would be described as enemy of the state. Those are the only people that would sanction
Yeah.
such a system. Because first of all, you and I are old enough.
Yeah.
Why did Zambian Airways fail in the first place? Okay, we liquidated it.
Yeah.
In fact, the old Zambian Airways that we liquidated was at this better asset base
than this.
But we decided to, these are the things that I'm talking about, whereby, I mean, I expected the president to be able to say, hey, Zambian Airways was considered
not
a previous government.
Not a priority.
Not a priority.
Yeah.
First of all, even from a business, from a business point of view, even as a matter of common sense, all airlines around the world are struggling. How do you launch an airline in this environment? Secondly, you want a state-owned enterprise to be competing with the private sector. It's crazy. Government is supposed to go where the private sector is not willing to go.
Yeah.
That's the way it should work. Because all the other routes and everything else, you set up, what are your routes? You set up an airline, and what are you doing? You are flying on the routes that are already adequately serviced by the private sector. By the way, this same arrangement has been tried in Malawi.
It's failed.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, how much research was undertaken in this thing? Now, these are all policies. Now, these people make decisions. They owe us an explanation.
Yeah.
They should be able to come out into the people and explain to them to say, okay, guys, we are launching this airline, irrespective of the pandemic. Here are the reasons why we believe this can work. You can't just arrogantly and set up something
and
like that.
It's being run by IDC, a conglomerate which has only got about 3 companies out of 24 which are viable.
Yeah. Even the IDC idea is another crazy idea.
Yeah.
You do not need IDC.
No.
We have come from there. By the end of the 1990s, all parastatals had collapsed.
Simco.
They had all collapsed.
Yeah.
Now, what do you want to go? I mean, these are the things that I'm talking about to say HH has more than enough material and experiences to draw from to be able to make sound decisions. IDC was a crazy decision. It was made by PF, but you don't have to continue.
And chaired by a president?
You know? And not only that, I mean, how do you have a state-owned company investing in Millimeo and these other
cows?
Great cows. Only in Zambia.
I love this. I really love this. In towns.
Yeah, in towns.
And the president goes to launch that company.
Yeah, taxpayers' money being invested in a town. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, how essential critical is a towns? I mean, what is the value of towns to the majority of the people in most of our low-density areas, high-density areas? And what is the value of towns to the general growth of the economy?
Yeah.
I mean, I would not have a problem if IDC was to invest in some fertilizer plant there to stop the importation of fertilizer and have the fertilizer manufactured locally.
Prospecting in oil, whatever.
That's right. I mean, I would not to go into towns, running a milling plant, running an airline. Come on. You know, these are services that can adequately be offered, but services which can adequately be offered by the private sector. You know, and you know, I don't think but maybe you would remember this. Chiluba used to have a slogan: "Government does no business in business."
Absolutely, I remember that very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why? Because government is not good at
You have no idea.
You have, I mean, government has never, especially given our experience in Zambia, we have never succeeded as government to run businesses. That is why private sector is always preferred to say the role of government should be regulatory, not to be a player in the economy. It can only be a player in the economy in exceptional circumstances when the private sector is reluctant to invest. But even if it is, government goes into a partnership with the private sector, still allows the private sector to run the business, and once the business picks up, government sells its interest, moves out, and leaves the private sector to run. The role of government is supposed to be regulatory, not to be a key player. So these are all things that make me stay awake at night when you look at overall since the election of August 2021.
IMF.
Well, again, it comes back to the issue.
They're saying, when I interviewed the minister, saying, as I asked him, I said, 1.4 billion is really nothing. It's just a drop in the ocean. His defense was that it gives us credibility. It gives us an opportunity, to restructure the dates.
That is fine. But what is fine? I mean, as long as we do not see it as an end in itself, but as a means to an end. The question is, what is the end? Now, one of the other things, again, it goes back. We've been on this path before. If you remember, the only time that we had riots, this was, I think, 89, 90, those arose out of IMF policies because subsidies were removed on Milli Meal and things like that. People rioted. And there's always been an argument over to do with IMF policies that the price that you have to pay for implementing these policies should not be the lives of the very people the policies are supposed to benefit. Okay. So there are many arguments that have been given. Yes, credibility is one of them, but the question that is there is, these policies we're looking at, what is the time framework? Okay, these subsidies that have been removed, how long will they be? What next? What is the time framework? What are the projections and so forth? I was reading something about Rwanda, for instance. Rwanda came up and said, I think they've increased the price of fuel.
And Botswana has too.
That's right. In the case of Rwanda,
all right, let's take another call. This is a beautiful discussion. This is a different program. I can't remember ever done a program like this. Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Ambassador Mutuvila. How are you, sir?
I'm good, sir. What is your name, sir?
My name is Chris, calling from Mundola.
Yes, Chris. What is your contribution?
Yes, State Council Sangwa. How are you, sir? Good to have you.
Thank you.
Yes, just a very quick one just to ride on what Mr. Sangwa said. I think the UPNG government are doing a lot of talking and we are seeing less action. I think they should tone down and get down to work. This is not time for making promises, we'll do this, we'll do that. The reason we ushered them into office is for them to do something different from the previous regime. Thank you so much, sir, and have a blessed day.
Thank you. Before you go back to the Rwanda thing, isn't this government fortunate that you've talked about all these reference points? You've talked about all these Zambian advisors, including the gentleman who ran. Are they not listening? Or are they not looking back?
I wish I had an answer to that.
No, let me answer for you, perhaps, because I've said this before. It's very unfortunate. I've had politicians, friends, for the last 51 years.
Yes.
Before they get into politics, the brilliant guys, their eyesight is fantastic. The ability to hear is fantastic. Immediately they get into politics, they lose their eyesight and they lose their ability to hear. I don't know why.
That's exactly. I wish I had an answer to that. when you don't have a theory to say, when you're outside politics,
Yeah.
it's like you have all your faculties intact.
Yeah.
When you get elected, it's like they have to take out a certain component in your head.
Right.
You take it out, which enables you to think in a practical way,
Yeah.
and you leave it out. And then you only come to get it once you're out of power.
Can we pick up another caller? We're having fun here. This is a beautiful discussion. Good morning.
Hello.
Morning. Your name, please?
Yeah, Chris again, Mr. Mutuvila, Ambassador.
Yes, Chris.
Yes, sir. You were asking me a question before the line cut?
No, I was praising you. This government is very fortunate. It's got amazing Zambians like you who are advising them. That look,
Okay.
you're going the wrong way. I was basically commending you.
Okay. Thank you so very much, sir. And again, just a quick one, sir. The problem that like Mr. Sangwa earlier alluded to, he said, if I heard him correct, he said these guys, if they want to do a good job, they should engage the citizen because we are the ones that employed them. The reason we voted for them is because we had to make a comparison based on the PF performance, and we trusted them that they are going to do a good job. Now the funny part is that they are talking more, and most of the guys that some of them who I'm close to, this time around they no longer pick calls even when you want to give them genuine advice. They no longer reply to our text messages. It's crazy, like Mr. Sangwa said. Anyway, thank you.
The State Council, I'm one of the most emotional human beings, I think, in this country. I sit sometimes in my bed and say, why are these people so cruel? We're not asking for much.
No.
Okay? And some of them, we suffer together.
Yeah.
And immediately they leave you, they're gone.
Yeah.
I remember, a good friend of mine, and a kind of a distant relation. He was a big boy in the previous government. There was time he kept me waiting for 4 hours.
Wow.
And no apology.
Wow.
Because he was a big boy.
Oh, yeah.
And then when he left office, I called him. Within 30 seconds.
That's right.
I think 10 seconds.
Oh, yes.
He had picked up the phone.
Oh, yes.
And I kept on reminding them. I said, look, nothing lasts forever except the word of God. But no.
That's why I stay away from politicians. And when there were all these stories about people in PF stealing, I used to remind them to say, you know what, guys, you have to be very primitive to steal from government.
Yeah, because there's a trail.
Because there is always a paper trail.
Yeah.
And I said, I had the privilege of defending people who served under Chiluba, President Chiluba. And I saw how their lives were ruined.
Yeah.
Some by mere association with President Chiluba. And their lives were ruined. And some, they were doing certain things, genuinely believing that they were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And they got messed up. Yeah, we can debate whether there was corruption or not during the time of Chiluba. Like in every bunch of people, there will always be a few bad eggs. Yeah. But I don't think there is anything to the scale of what we saw under the PF. Now, for some reason, people knew how Chiluba was prosecuted. But for some reason, you'd expect that people will have more respect for government property. And yet, they just went wild. They went on a rampage. Now, the same people, we don't seem to learn.
Yeah.
The same thing we are saying with people. Why did PF lose? Because they got detached from the people.
Yeah.
They thought they were smarter than the people that elected them. Now, any proper leader that is working for the people must always maintain contact with the people that voted him. And that is why this is the problem. I don't see anybody, why anybody who is in PF that I used to talk to, in UPND I used to talk to, for example, to refuse to pick up my call and so forth. It's not that we're looking for jobs.
Yeah.
We have passed the stage to do jobs. But when you maintain the contact, you get to know the reality on the ground. But when you cut ties with the people, you create your own reality. That is how, when I heard Given Lubinda say, we don't understand how we lost the election. Now, you get to understand how detached these guys were from the reality. You know? Why? Because the moment they enter into those offices, they cut all ties.
Absolutely.
They think they are smart. They know
Ivory
all.
towers.
They are the smartest people. No. When you are president, you are minister, we're not saying you are smarter than us. No. We're simply chosen you to see, because there can only be one president. We're simply saying we are choosing you to run the affairs of this country. Are we saying you are smarter than we are? No. You are not. We are simply saying, amongst all the people that have come forward, we think you're a better person. But at the end of the day, the biggest problem is that when the politicians remove themselves from contact with people, then you wonder, who are they working for? Okay? And that is why you have crazy policies being introduced, because policies which have no relevance to the lives of the people, because they begin to think that they know better. No, they don't. We, the people that voted him, them know better. And that is why policies, whenever they're being formulated, go back to the people and engage them. We would like to do this for you. Do you agree? Okay? And as long as you are doing introducing and implementing policies that have been endorsed by the people, you'll be comfortable. And people will not change anything. They are going to vote for you if you are doing the right thing. The moment you lose track, people throw you out.
Absolutely.
You know, we've already shown that we have learned the value of a vote, you know, talking about policies, and that is exactly the issue we're supposed to be talking about, to do with Ziale. Ziale is a product of bad policies, driven by arrogance, where people think they know it all. Okay?
Who's in charge?
Well, at the end of the day, the buck stops with government. Okay? Because what Ziale represents, you know, Ziale and many other of these, all these universities that exist, both public and private, they are largely now a racket. They're basically a racket against the poor of this country.
395 failed?
Yes.
Out of 400?
Yes.
And you collect the money?
Yes, you collect the money. Now, the tragedy...
When you collect that money, are you not supposed to provide quality education commensurate of the money that you're collecting? Isn't that criminal?
Well, it's a problem. For me, the tragedy is that Ziale is run by people that are supposed to be the most educated in the country. We have, I think at one time we had judges, lawyers, eminent lawyers that are supposed to be running the institution. The tragedy is this thing has been going on for years.
Absolutely.
Okay? And nothing has been done. And we continue to laugh. You know, we become so desensitized to failure that we have come to accept failure as normal.
Yeah.
We have come to normalize the abnormal. What would be abnormal in other countries, we have come to accept it. The tragedy for me is the fact that this thing has been going on for years, and there has not been any discussion, no national conversation on this particular performance. Because when you have results like that, what it tells you is that these are the same people at some point who end up being judges.
Yeah.
Who end up being lawyers. They're already struggling. So based on your own system, these people are failing. Now, if they are failing, what kind of hope are you instilling in your judicial system? Yeah. You know, and these are the problems that we have. For instance, I mean, I've been critical about the quality of our judges and everything else. And these are all problems, all emanating from bad government policies. Okay? These are products of government policies. And at the end of the day, I know people, I was reading a piece about somebody who was saying, well, we need detailed research on this to understand why this is so. Well, you can do research, but I think the answer is very simple. The results we're seeing at Ziale is a reflection of a total collapse of our education system.
Would I remain there as CEO, as director, as a board, presiding over failure?
No, of course not. I mean, if let's say, if let's say I was in charge of the institution, with those kind of results, I'll be able to take measures.
Yeah.
I'll not just sit quietly and go on every day, day in, day out. I would say, listen, can we apply brakes first?
Where's the problem?
Where's the problem? You know? But again, it comes down to policies. When I was at the university, when I was still teaching, the problem of poor quality students was already noted early in the early 2000, if I remember correctly. And we had a discussion within the law school where there was a general feeling that we should make a law degree not as a first degree. You come to law school to get your second degree.
Right.
Now, the rationale was that the quality of students we were receiving was so bad that it needed at least to allow these people to go for their first degree and then come to UNZA for their second degree, come to law school for their second degree. Because by that time they'll have been mature, more analytical and critical in their thinking. So we already noted this. This is 20 years ago. But obviously that discussion was dropped because everybody thought that, well, we still needed more lawyers. If we introduce that system, then very few, we'll have very few lawyers. And we'll make law as an elitist program and everything else. But the argument was, lawyers are critical for the functioning of your system because these are not ordinary persons. These are the people that will graduate and become judges and stand in judgment of other people's lives. And therefore, they needed to be people of a certain caliber. But obviously, that idea was shot down. And here we are. But my argument still remains is that I do hope the new Dawn government would do something about it, because clearly what it shows is we have a problem. The education system has collapsed. Now, maybe you have heard, but I haven't heard anything from the relevant Minister of Education, for example, about what they are going to do about fixing.
I don't think it's made any.
About fixing the education system. A friend of mine told me he sends his children to school in Zimbabwe. He says that notwithstanding the chaos in Zimbabwe, they still have a robust education system. Now, education is key to the development of any country. You screw up your education system, you should forget about education. And I think it goes back to the rationale of creating the University of Zambia by Kaunda, because then it was realized at independence, I mean, statistics show that we had something like 100 graduates and about 1,000 people that had finished secondary school education. And they realized that we are a developing country, and for you to develop, you needed educated manpower. That's how the university was set up. We are still a developing country, and I still believe that education should never be a business. Education should be a service that should be provided for by the government. But what we have done over the years, we have commercialized education. And in the process, we are where we are. The problem of Ziala is not unique to the legal profession. I think it also applies to other disciplines and so forth.
Let me give Kaunda in a credit, and he didn't go far in school. Yes, he had some colleagues of his who had gone to school. The world has evolved. It's become very sophisticated. Why is it that learned people have gone to school, and there were many in the previous government, the many in this government, why are they not addressing these critical issues? Have they removed the concentration, the focus from critical things to things that are going to raise their personal standards?
Yeah. It comes down to the issue raised earlier as to whether these people are singing from the same hymn sheet or not. It becomes critical. I mean, this is the same thing that we're talking about earlier on when you say, when you're a new dawn, what does new dawn mean? Okay, it means changing things. So I would expect a radical transformation of our education system under this new government, because we have problems in our education system. And this problem affects the poor, by the way, because all those people with money, they send their children overseas. People with money, they don't send their children to local universities. They don't, because these local universities, somebody made me laugh and said that he went to some place which was designated as a university, but when you looked at the structure looked like a chicken run.
Oh God.
Yeah, you know, it's because you have lost control as a government, you know. So we have a problem. So the problem that is, first of all, we have to find a way to arrest the decline in our education system. Once we have arrested that, we say, okay, fine. How then do we start? Because, I mean, the problem is that we can't even have honest conversations over these things. Yeah. The products we are producing, they are bad. They're bad products. Okay. So the question is, do we go on producing these bad products, or we put in place measures to ensure that we improve the quality of what we are producing? And once we put in place measures, what do we do with the bad products that we've already produced? Okay. All these things need to be addressed, and only government can do this. You know, one, I would be interested to know what the president's position is on the education system. You know, because really, I mean, the products from universities which were run by Kaunda are people that went overseas. Botswana used to recruit Zambian teachers, Zambian doctors, Zambian whatever. They built that country. Why? Because the quality of the product met international standards. The quality was high, what we are producing. But I don't think there is any country that would actually recruit people, current graduates from any of our universities. I doubt that very much. Although we are living in a globalized world where labor has become very mobile, I doubt it very much. Because even for me, in my small law firm, I don't get lawyers from certain universities. I simply say no. Okay? No, because these institutions are driven purely by money. And the preferred choice was always UNZA, because admission to UNZA was not dependent on money, but it was more on merit. But I understand UNZA has also gone commercial. So, we're in trouble. Okay? So, we have a problem, and the Ziale problem, nobody's even talking about what are we going to do about it. Okay? There's another bigger problem. You are going to have 400 lawyers. Where will they go?
Yeah.
Where will they go? There are no jobs. There are no jobs for lawyers. You know, and this again boils down to government policies. In the old days, we ran a system because government maintained the education system. There was always a connection between the educational needs of the country and what was being produced. So that is why, for example, the moment I graduated, I didn't struggle to find a job.
Yeah.
There was already a job waiting for me.
They used to recruit us from school.
From school.
Yeah, a career master will come and start recruiting.
Yeah.
From there, we've abandoned all the good things.
Yeah.
You know, which is a big shame. Let's quickly talk before we close. Let's quickly talk about corruption, the fifth, issue. I mean, I know there must have been crazy thing that happened in the previous government, but isn't this just a little fish being plucked out from the sea, this little girl? Are there not many? There must be many cases out there. Can I borrow the word from my friends, the diggers, that it looks like pante. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, you know, the problem with one of the reasons we voted out PF was the general belief of the extent of the corruption that was going on. It was not a secret. Now, but the only thing is that we didn't know the scale. Now, the only predicament we have right now is that both DEC and ACC are basically independent organizations. Nobody can tell them what to do, not even the president. There are clearly internal challenges within, because these institutions are still being run by people who were there when these acts of corruption were being perpetrated. One may ask, why didn't they do these investigations before? Because if you are independent, because they've been independent since the Constitution was amended in 2016. Now, well, somebody may say, well, there was interference. Then if there was interference, then you should have resigned from your positions. But the fact that you remain in this position, it means you're also complicit in these in the acts of corruption that were going on. But I think there is also something to take into account. This is just my personal view. One of the legacies of President Lungu and his government was that most of these institutions were underfunded, and because you are underfunded, you're not able to attract the most competent and the most competent and qualified people to work in these institutions. But at the end of the day, it is a concern in the sense that normally these things are supposed to be thoroughly investigated. And when you arrest, it means you have done your robust investigations, comprehensive. It is also unfair to the person that is being accused of crime. How many times are you going to arrest a person? Okay, we have to be sensitive to these things. So what is required is to be able to carry out full investigation, thoroughly investigate it, come up with a list of offenses, and charge the person with all the crimes at once, so that that person gets prosecuted once, not in a piecemeal.
Are you fearful that this is going to be a lost cause?
I have my worries.
Yeah.
Having experience, having spent 7 years defending President Hichilema, who was equally accused of corruption. What happened in that case, for instance, I think the country spent more money in prosecuting than what was actually recovered. We have a lot of experience in fighting or prosecuting such kind of cases, and I think we should be doing a better job than what we are doing currently. And of course, people have expressed concern over the pace at which these things are going on. It is not so much of the pace, but I think it is more about how thorough the investigations are being conducted. For example, I don't know, I have to be careful about what I say, but let's look at the first deal that was struck between the what's his ACC, I don't know whether it's DC or ACC, with Faith Musoni. Now, there are a lot of question marks, and then this is what it boils down to. ACC are still accountable to the people, and when you look at the deal that was struck, do you just end up of getting the assets and you forget about it? But there's still one fundamental question that was never answered. They said these properties, money, they were all proceeds of the crime. But what is the source of the money? Okay? Nobody's talking about that. That money must have come from somewhere.
From somewhere.
Where?
Absolutely.
Okay?
That's the most important question.
That's the most important thing, because you know, I let me say something which may not sit well with certain people. I know people celebrate Mwanawasa as a corruption fighter and so forth. I have my own reservations in that regard, in the sense that when he came to power, of course, the certain things were done which I had the privilege of being on the other side. A lot of things which were done I did not agree with. And one of the things I said myself is that if President Mwanawasa was truly a corruption fighter, he should have noticed the source of corruption, the weaknesses that may have allowed his predecessor and his ministers to loot from the government. During his presidency, President Mwanawasa should have taken steps to seal off these loopholes so that the corruption does not happen again. Now, it comes down, fast forward to today. I have no recollection of anything that President Mwanawasa would have may have done to make sure that the corruption. Here we are, 10 years later, we're still talking about people looting, and in fact, the looting is even to a greater scale. So, what measures were put in place after Chilubas presidency to stop corruption? What measures? Because clearly, if there were measures, we should have been able to prevent the corruption under the PF, and even under the new government. It is not just about talking about the fact, oh, PF was corrupt, Lungu was a thief, all this and that. Fine, all those things have happened. What are you going to do to make sure that these acts of corruption do not happen again? Okay, fine. We can't change the past, but we can change the future.
Absolutely.
What measures have we put in? I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, President Hichilema was elected on anti-corruption drive. What does he do? What has he said about corruption? What measures has he put in place? What legislation has he introduced? What is it that is being done to seal off? Because clearly for corruption to occur, it means that there were weaknesses in the system.
Absolutely.
Now, where were the weaknesses? What are you doing in sealing off those loopholes? So it's one thing to talk about something, and it's another thing to act on this
Right.
thing. Faith Musonda is a typical example. For me, I'm not so much interested about, yes, he was found with 65 million,
No.
this property.
No.
I would like to, where did the money come from? Somebody must have facilitated this money.
Find that person.
Who is that person? These
Yeah.
are critical
Because
issues.
the girl is maybe just a pawn in.
Yes.
in
So,
all
but in
this.
any case, we all know it doesn't require genius to know that there is no way she could have had that kind of
No.
money anyway. You and I have been working so hard.
Oh, it's it's crazy. I mean,
you know,
ah.
you know. So we've never been to bed with any politicians
Yeah,
and so forth. But the point that is there is that yes, all these things I think require sober-mindedness.
Yeah.
We shouldn't just talk about those things were bad. They did this, they did that. Granted,
Do something.
those things happen.
Right. One
What-
quick question before
Yes.
we close, State Council. We've only got about 3-4 minutes from Facebook. The gentleman is asking, what your base is when you differed, with the decision of the speaker to throw out, those nullified members.
Yeah, I have argued. I did state. First of all, I wish I had that question much earlier.
Yeah.
Then I would have discussed it at
Yeah.
length. It is still a wrong decision.
Yeah.
It undermines democracy. Because you see, here is the logic, just even as a matter of common sense. One of the issues that I raised is that right now those MPs have been thrown out. They're not sitting on the House, right? Now, they have taken their elections to the Constitutional Court. We don't know when the Constitutional Court will decide.
Could even take a year.
Could even take a year. So are you saying that those people, say, which is Bomba and Lusambo's constituency? Kabushi. Are you saying that it is okay for the people of Kabushi to remain without representation in the National Assembly for the next 1 year? It cannot be in accord with the concept of democracy for people to remain without legal representation. Now, if, let's say, I would love to believe Mr. Honorable Lusambo is one of those people that have actually appealed, there is nothing wrong in him remaining in the assembly whilst the matter is pending before the Constitutional Court on appeal. At least they have the benefit of his representation. And if, let's say, the position is confirmed by the Constitutional Court, then he vacates. Elections are held within 3 months.
Yeah.
If there is any vacuum, it's only for that 3 months. What's there? Because right now, you can't even have a by-election. You can't.
No.
Yeah, there are more other provisions of the Constitution which I've argued to say you don't interpret the Constitution in isolation.
Right.
And even the premise of Speaker's decision to say, well, it will lead to unjust enrichment, which is crazy because a member of Parliament can say, Honorable Speaker, I'm prepared to sit in the House free of charge. Don't pay me any benefits. I just want to represent my people. What is the Speaker going
Absolutely.
to say? It has to be based on the law, and the law does not support that decision.
Okay, finally and very briefly, a young lady, and she'll be our guest on Thursday breakfast, Muiza Zulu, the daughter of Michael Zulu and Sister D, a very aggressive young lady. She's a young governance activist, says the problem of this country is simply poor leadership. Do you subscribe to that? And you talked about your concerns. Are you fearful of the future of this country? I am. I'm 69 now. The next election in 5 years now. If my calculation of how long it takes for the economy to pick up, 10 to 20 years, I don't see the juice, for lack of a better word, in my time in this country. And it's very sad because I've seen good days.
Yeah.
Absolutely good days.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's something that has exercised my mind.
Yeah.
We have all the resources you can think of.
Yeah.
You talk about fertile soil. I mean, people envy the resources we have. we are able to feed ourselves and feed. Agriculture alone can power this country. Minerals we can't even talk about. People say we have possibly the best emeralds in the world.
Absolutely. There's now gold.
There is now gold. Copper we can't even talk about. You have all countries have developed with less than what we have.
Rwanda. Almost nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Botswana. Obviously, people talk about diamonds, but even diamonds, they have managed those resources.
Yeah.
So what is it that we are missing?
Yeah.
I think my theory is we have been blessed with everything except leadership.
Yeah.
That's our biggest curse.
Yeah.
We have if I was to be brutal and sum it up, is that our biggest curse is that we have not been blessed with good leadership in this country.
Yeah.
Because with proper leadership, we can transform this country in our lifetime. I still believe that it is possible with proper leadership to transform the wish. You can't spend 57 years still developing.
No.
You don't graduate to a developed country. We're still developing.
Like physics.
So there is something fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
And the problem is leadership.
Yeah.
And the leadership and the policies they assume in the process. Those are what have really crippled this country. And then look at countries like Japan. Basically nothing.
Yeah.
Knowledge-driven economy.
Yeah.
South Korea, name them, Asian tigers, and even China itself today. What is empowering China? Change in mindset, change in leadership, and that's why I've had so much hope in HH. I had so much hope. Given his background, his business acumen, and everything else. And I said, I even said to him, Mr. President, you're going to turn around this country around. I mean, I had, I guess the brightest day of my life was, one of the many brightest days of my life was when he was declared winner of the election. Yeah. I mean, I had so much hope.
You danced after morning.
Yes, but now I am not so sure, given what I've seen so far. And the other problem is this, I don't think that as president you ought to be surrounded by employees. Your ministers should not be your employees.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be your peers who should tell you, Mr. President, here you are wrong.
Yeah.
Here you are wrong. This is the way to do it.
I hear you. I got you. It's festive period. You're a Christian. With all what we discussed, today, and we threw away all the questions. It was a beautiful discussion. We sound worried. What will you be discussing with God, with Jesus during this period, being a Christian? And are you going to Rema finally?
No. I've just had too much on my plate. Okay. So I think I've just decided to put it off to next year. Yeah.
So what festive period are you going to have?
No, nothing much really, because when you look at it, there's very little cause to celebrate actually.
Yeah.
Because everything looks so gloomy. And if I had hope, if I'd seen some green shoots, which I haven't seen in the last 3 months, maybe I'd have had cause to celebrate.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because I don't look at 2020 with much optimism. And largely because, I don't get the right messages from those people in leadership that would inspire hope. And also the other problem is that, when you have a leadership which does not even acknowledge that there is a problem, that's even a bigger problem.
This is mutual.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, as usual.
Yeah.
Spend time with God. I'll do, the same.
Yeah.
God bless you. Thank you for coming. It's
Thank
always an honor to have you on our radio station. This has been just a discussion, an end of the year discussion with State Council John Sangwa. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for being our guest, and have a happy Christmas, and hopefully a better year next year than this year. Good morning.